Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network analyst, and he joins us from the Combine. The NFL Network's live coverage of the Combine starts Thursday at 4 Eastern with quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends. Daniel, thanks for joining us. Let me start with that. This whole Joe Burrow situation. What is the buzz at the Combine about what they think the Bengals are going to do, and is there an end game for Joe Burrow?
Well, I think there was a lot of chatter, Dan, about, does he try and force his way out of there? And, I thought there's two ways you can do that if you chose to do it, and one of which would never work with Mike Brown and the Bengals, and that's to go John Elway, scorched earth, go public, and really kind of embarrass the team. That just wouldn't work. The Bengals would take him and not set that type of a precedent. But the other way to do it is kind of the Eli way, which is a little more back-channeled. So I think if that was going on, I don't know that we would even know about it. So,
yeah.
I still think when it's all said and done, he's going to get picked by the Bengals. He's going to show up and play for the Bengals. But if that was going on behind the scenes, I wouldn't be totally shocked.
I think he's keeping it, maybe strategically vague on purpose.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I just think, again, if you come out and go scorched earth right now, it's not going to end well for you. So, I think you try and gather as much information as you can. And I thought it would be interesting to see what the Bengals do in free agency. If you want to show that you're committed and you really do want to win a championship, do something out of your character and go out there and be a little bit more aggressive in free agency, something that they just never have really done.
I had a source tell me this yesterday, a couple of things. We talked about Tua, and I said if Tua didn't have this hip injury, now granted he does have this, but if he didn't, would there be serious debate about who should be the number one quarterback taken?
For me, I think you'll get some different answers. For me, there isn't. I would take, if Tua was totally healthy, I would still take Joe Burrow.
Okay.
So that's my opinion. I know there's people on both sides of that argument. I really like Tua, but to me, when you have two players that played for, on incredibly talented teams, there's so much of the production you have to kind of set aside, Dan, and you have to dig in. And to me, you've got to study the quality opponents they played against. And then you've got to really study the pressure snaps that they played, because there aren't a lot of them. I think with Burrow this past year, he had maybe 180 of them. I think Tua had maybe 68 or right around 70 snaps where he was under pressure. And when you study the better opponents and when you study them when they're under pressure, it's a decided edge for Joe Burrow in the way they performed. And that, to me, is why I ended up with Burrow over Tua.
I also had a source tell me that somebody's going to fall in love with Justin Herbert. Somebody's going to go up, and it feels like we're surprised every year with Mitchell Trubisky or Daniel Jones that Justin Herbert might be that quarterback. Your thoughts?
I think you'll get a varied opinion on that one. I actually think Jordan Love has more upside than Herbert. So, I think Herbert, in terms of somebody that can get on the field right now, he's incredibly intelligent. He's played a ton of football. I think he's going to be kind of at his ceiling pretty early on. And he's a great athlete, but Herbert's not really a playmaker, an off-schedule playmaker. He's going to execute as it's designed in the play sheet, whereas Jordan Love has a little bit more moxie, a little more playmaking ability, and a little more upside, but he's not ready to play right now. But I think, Dan, when you look at kind of the 5, 6, and 7, I think you're going to see at least two quarterbacks go in that range. You're going to have Cincinnati take one. Then you're going to see two more, I believe, go in that range. I think Herbert would probably be the favorite behind Tua to be that third quarterback. But I think it's a very real possibility we have three go in the top 6 picks. And then another one with Jordan Love. Once you get down to, Raiders, Colts, Tampa, I think you could see him go in that range.
Also, we make a big deal about quarterbacks' hands. Why don't we make a big deal about wide receivers' hands?
I looked it up. And I every year before the Combine, and we'll talk about it on the air as these workouts are going on, but I like to, look up how the top players in the NFL, I don't care, what everybody in the Combine did or what even NFL starters did, but like receivers, I'll take the top 10 in terms of receptions and yards, and then I'll look up all their Combine numbers and see what you learn. The fascinating thing, Dan, is the average 40 time for the top 10 receivers in those statistical categories is 4.55. So it's not the 40, it's the 4.5. You know what a bunch of them have is some stinking huge hands. So there is something there in terms of the hand size, those wide receivers.
Yeah, I don't know why that. It's one thing to hold a football; it's another thing to catch the football when it's thrown to you. That always amazed me. But I saw where Mike Mayock was talking about how it's really tough to try to figure out how that wide receiver who's successful in college is going to be successful in the pros, because it's a completely different game that's played. There's no press coverage. You go to a spot, you're usually wide open there. I don't know how much you're reading a defense there, but I know you say this is one of the great wide receiving drafts in recent memory, but how do you know who's going to make that transition?
Well, I think, first of all, that's been a challenge evaluating, receivers making that leap for decades, because you're going to see so much more press coverage. But I think as the more you do it, you look at it, you say, okay, even though he's not seeing press coverage, I can tell by his foot quickness off the line. I can tell by his strength. You got to beat press coverage with your feet or your hands, Dan. So you've got to either have that foot quickness to escape, or you got to have the strength upper body-wise to power through and get off press. So you kind of have to look at those things and project what these guys are going to be able to do. The good news is, while maybe you don't see as much press coverage in some of these college games, these kids have played so much 7-on-7 and have run so many routes that I think there's a lot more route polish to these guys than we've seen. I think it gets better and better every year, and that's why you're starting to see, some of these guys have more of an impact, and you saw it last year with especially the Ole Miss kids with A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf and Terry McLaurin, all those guys stepping on the field and playing pretty well. Obviously, Deebo Samuel would be a poster child.
Jalen Hurts facing the questions about being a quarterback or not. Where do you stand on Jalen Hurts playing that position?
I was encouraged by the fact that I found out today when they have the meeting and you can request for players to play other positions, that none of the 32 teams requested Jalen Hurts to play another position, which speaks well to the intelligence of the NFL, that they're not asking this guy to play another position. He's a quarterback. It's what he is. There's been some comparisons to Dak Prescott, and I think there's something to that in terms of just the strength, the ability to extend plays. I think Dak threw with more anticipation and a little more accurate, but this kid makes plays, man. And to me, I think when you get in the second round, not every team's going to have him there, but some team I think is going to fall in love with him and say we can kind of build our offense around somebody like this.
Talking to Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network analyst. They got the Combine Thursday at 4 Eastern with the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and the tight ends. When Tua gets examined, is it just one doctor who's examining him and then you get the teams to get the information from that examination, or is he going to every team?
Well, I think all those teams get in there together. So you'll see. I think I was talking to Steve Weich, who's spent some time around Tua in his camp, and I think he said it was 10 hours of medical stuff yesterday. So it is a long, long process, with all those teams' doctors getting a chance to look at you and poke and prod you. You have to be careful, obviously, with that injury specifically. But the films, I believe, those same films obviously get sent out to all the teams. But in terms of the physical examination, each of the teams have an opportunity there.
Highest graded quarterback you've ever been around since you've been doing this?
And Andrew Luck. Yeah, Andrew Luck's still the highest graded quarterback that I've done. So
who might surprise me that you had a high grade for?
Well, I made it known at the time. I was a big Sam Darnold fan, so I had a big grade on Sam Darnold.
Are you still?
Yeah, I'm still hopeful there. He's still young. I think he's got all the tools, Dan. He's got all the ability. They've got to give him some help. And he needs to not get mono. That would also be helpful. So, to get him with the offensive line.
Daniel, that was in his draft profile, susceptible to mono. I don't know how you didn't see that, or the Jets didn't.
I try to do as much background as I can, Dan. I missed that one.
But Sam Darnold, to me, if I'm Joe Burrow's camp and I look at Sam Darnold, where I'm not with a good organization, no stability there, and what kind of weapons do I have? Like, that's where you get into bad habits. If you said that Sam Darnold was going to be playing for the Texans or the Chiefs, we would look at Sam Darnold differently. That's why we're not quite sure at how good he is, because it feels like the whole team and the organization, you're not sure how good they are.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful with the Jets. I worked with Joe Douglas, and he's just gotten there. He hasn't had a chance to go through a draft yet with them, so I'm hopeful that he's going to get a chance to build up around him and give him a fighting chance, because it just hasn't been fair. Like I'm watching the Super Bowl, Dan, and I'm watching Garoppolo and make some plays, and I'm sitting here going, is there anything Jimmy Garoppolo does that Sam Darnold couldn't do if he had Kyle Shanahan and that system in place? Like, a lot of the success for these guys at that position early on is dependent on where they land and what they have around them.
Well, imagine Joe Burrow with San Francisco.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, he's got Joe Burrow. Everybody, you talk about quarterbacks wanting to have a kind of their superhuman trait. And with Joe Burrow, it's not arm strength. What his superhuman strength is his vision. Like, his field vision is as good as I've seen from any quarterback I've ever done. Like, his ability to see things, to work through progression and get the ball out of his hand is as good as I've ever seen. And with Kyle Shanahan's brain matched with this kid's knowledge to be able to dissect the defense, that'd be scary.
If I had Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield in this year's draft, what would be the draft order?
I would say, great question. Kyler Murray is so unique. I would say probably Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, then Baker would be my guess. But I would say there's more of a discussion between the first two. I would say Baker would be third no matter what. But there will be some teams with certain offenses that would favor Burrow. Others would be more intrigued by what you could get with Kyler Murray.
Are you in the bench press area at the Combine?
I am. Fortunately, there's nobody on the bench press at this point in time.
But what could you throw up if I said, why don't you get in there and let me hear you do one rep?
I'd buckle. I did 13 my senior year going at Appalachian State. Did 13 reps. And then I can honestly tell you, Dan, that was in the year 1999, and I have not gotten under a bench press since 1999. I'm a dumbbell guy.
But that was when you were on HGH, and that helped you with the 225, right?
Yeah, well, no comment. But the thing about the bench press, when it gets quiet in here, you hope that they're cheering because, Dan, you'll hear some things when they're trying to squeeze out that last rep. It's not always pretty.
Gasher's Clay?
Exactly.
Hey, have fun out there, and good luck. We'll be counting on you.
I appreciate it, Dan. It should be fun.
That's Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network analyst.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on BR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.